All right. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. Today we're going to be talking about grades. So we're with Mark and Michael. Mark, our executive director, thanks for joining us. And then Michael, one of our senior contributors. So why don't we get started by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about what you do, Michael.
I've been coaching basketball on the grassroots level, high school and college level for about almost 30 years now, since graduating from Temple, where one of my good friends, Mark Strickland, attended. You know, we're fellow floor mates on fifth floor hardwood.
Yeah.
So and through that process, you know, I kind of I just started with in the grassroots as far as just, you know, helping kids like 9 or 10 years, just at that age and that younger age, and then kind of just grew up with them and get into the high school level. And, you know, one of the things that, you know, when we started playing in these tournaments and things like that, and we started branching with, I'm from Delaware, so when we branched out of Delaware and got into like Chester and Philly, you know, we started getting a lot of recognition from college coaches. And so, and the biggest thing was, you know, a lot of the first question they're going to ask you was, hey, what do the grades look like? Are you qualified? So, you know, just trying to understand, and then just trying to get my kids to understand the importance of the classroom, you know, so that they can use that to get them scholarships. So we've had about 140 kids, now about over more than 140 kids that have gone on to get full scholarship. And a lot of it is just putting that work into the transcripts and getting the kids to understand that the importance of off the court as well as on the court as well.
Absolutely. So I guess we'll get started at the beginning and just asking you a basic question as to when parents and coaches should really start honing in on their children's grades in relation to NCAA eligibility. I know that's going to lay the foundation for a lot of what we're talking about today. So how early should parents and coaches start, you know, focusing on this?
Well, I would think like, you know, as early as possible. I mean, there should be a foundation set by coaches, and especially grassroots coaches, you know, as far as knowing what the kids' grades are while they're in middle school, and then, you know, setting that foundation so once they get to high school, you know, that they have a good they have good study skills and good habits where they're focused, and they know that ball and the grades are there's a correlation between that, because a lot of times, you know, I don't think the biggest thing I've seen is where coaches don't hold kids accountable for their grades at a younger age. And then so once they're getting to the ninth, you know, I deal with that all the time with like a lot of my ninth graders that I teach as a teacher, that, you know, they're in that eighth grade or middle school mentality. And, you know, it takes them a little bit to a while to adjust to ninth grade. But now the way to you know, the standards are set for the NCAA to qualify. Man, sometimes if you lose that first year, it's hard to catch up after, you know, that ninth grade year. So I really, I always think that, you know, if you can start in that middle school and get them in that mindset that, you know, man, we got to hit just like we on the court, man. If we got to hit every defensive assignment, offensive assignment. Hey, this is what we need on offense. Just like in the classroom, you got to do every assignment, you know, and stay on top of it, and, you know, be productive every time you step in the classroom.
You know, let's say you do end up falling behind in your freshman year. How are you able to make your way back, and how is everything weighted when you say that each assignment does matter, that it is the little things?
You know, I always try to say, like, my kids, like in my classroom, they're like, Mr. Shepard, man, I did all my work, man, and I got a D, right? And then so you look at them and say, well, say we have 10 assignments, and say, yeah, well, you did 5 assignments, okay? So first of all, we didn't do all of the work, all right? So you might have did all your work in those 5 assignments, but you did 5 assignments. So just say, hey, you know, you did those 5 assignments. You're still looking at a 50 at that point. You know, even if you got 100 and all that, you're still looking at a 50, and you're still failing. So that's why I try to get my kids to understand that when you get a 0 on an assignment, that brings your grade down significantly. And you have to be in a situation to be like, hey, I have to do all my assignments. And that's the one thing I really stress with my basketball kids, and of course my students, is do every assignment. Because again, and you don't know, and different assignments may be weighted differently. One assignment might be weighted a lot higher than another assignment. You just don't. So just do all the assignments and make sure that you're getting the highest grade that you can. So again, like at the end, if you're able to be like you have that situation, if you're a point away from that letter grade, the higher letter grade, you can go to the teacher and be like, hey, can I do something? What can I do? And if you do that, then they're more apt to say, hey, to help you out.
Right.
So,
And
yeah.
how fickle are these letter grades? How fickle have these letter grades been, and the GPAs been in reference to the clearinghouse and the NCAA rules?
Well, the thing about that, like with the letter grades, okay, the different schools have different standards. So for instance, or not, I would not say standards, but different grading scales. Yeah, grading scale. So for instance, like I have a 10-point grading scale at my school. Well, I know other kids have maybe a 7-point grading scale where they're going from a 93 to 100 is an A, where in my school district we have a 90 to 100 is an A. So so that's the one thing you have to understand that, because the NCAA, they don't care what grading scale you're on. Okay, so you have to have that understanding what your grading scale is at your school, and act appropriately. And because again, you may end up getting a 90, and in one school, and then another school you end up getting a B, which is a 3.0. Mm-hmm. So you have to really understand. That's another thing, just understanding what your grading scale is, and and also understanding your teachers, and that's always try to tell my basketball kids. It's understanding your teachers, just like on the court, you have to understand your coach. What does your coach want from you? Same thing. What does your teacher want from you? Because if you're going to miss assignments, and your defensive assignments or your offensive assignments, the more assignments you miss, I always tell my kids, the more time you're gonna be sitting next to me. So so you gotta, in school, the more times you miss those assignments in school, man, it's really it's really detrimental to that grade, and you gotta just stay on top of them assignments.
Yeah, it seems very important when you're thinking about your grading scale, say that you fall above the NCAA guidelines at your school, right, but at the next one you kind of fall below. That's not a lot of breathing room that you have there. No. Mark, I know you just went through this whole process, getting your son to college and getting him ready. I'm not aware of his grades. I'm sure that they were graded, I'm sure. But what was the process like for him? And what were some of the things that you kind of looked over as he went academically throughout his career?
What I did, I used myself as an example. I was a late bloomer in school. Really didn't, back then it wasn't as big until I got maybe 10th grade when, you had to have a certain GPA and all of that. So I was actually Prop 48 because I didn't pass the SAT. And then once I got to Temple, that's when I kind of started really honing in on my books, my grades, because I just didn't want to be embarrassed about, my mom getting that call, like, your son's academically ineligible. That to me is so embarrassing.
Yeah.
So I kind of started with him early on. It took a while. Boys, I don't know what it is about boys. Just, the grade thing just kicks in later. So I just kind of got him on the GPA, letting him know how serious and how it can affect his future early. Once we got to middle school, it was no problems. He kind of knew, hey, and I kind of took over the coach role when it came to books. The coach didn't have to do that. If he came home and he had 2 Ds, he wasn't, I would call the coach, he's not playing today because he got 2 Ds. I'm not letting him go out there like that. So once I started setting those kind of boundaries for him early, he kind of started taking school a little bit more serious because he knew that he wanted to play in the games. I wasn't going to let him play if he had a bad GPA because I didn't want him to go through the same experience I had with school. My senior year was rough. I had to make every class. I had tutoring sessions. I had all kind of stuff I had to do just to get the GPA to get to college. So I was just blessed enough to have John Chaney and a couple of other schools was taking Prop 48 guys. I think Georgetown, a couple of other schools, coaches Arkansas at that time. And I got to school and I had to really hone hold on to my books. Prop 48 year was actually a blessing because it gave me an opportunity to kind of get used to college, going to class, seeing how my teachers were. The thing that I did with him that I didn't do, I actually taught him what Mike Shepard is teaching his kids, how to talk to your teachers. And I think that was a huge thing that I didn't learn until I got to Temple. And I taught him that once he got to high school, and I think IMG really helped him with that, teaching him how to talk to teachers. Because sometimes, a lot of times, you just have a conversation with your teacher and go to her after school, and she might give you an extra, okay, you do this assignment, that'll make up for that assignment. Because teachers want you to pass for the most part, you know? They don't want you to fail. So I think that's the most important part. I like that Mike said that, because a lot of these guys do not want to have a relationship with the teacher. I don't understand that. Because you get that relationship, you never know. When you get, okay, I'll give you this assignment, you turn this in, you know, you get a good grade on it, that becomes an A instead of a 0. So I think that's the key. So going through the process that I went through, it made it easier for him because I kind of knew what to expect and knew what he had to do and the guidelines he had to take to make it easier for him once he got to college, which is now he's at University of St. Louis.
So basically what I'm curious about is including going to your teachers. What are the pointers that you have for students and that you have for parents to tell their kids about how they can kind of make a difference, make their, you know, GPA bump a little bit? What are some things that they can do to, you know, improve their standing throughout the year?
I think like what is very important is again communicating with the teachers, and not only the students, but also the parents is communicating with the teachers and knowing exactly what has to be done. And, you know, is there a platform where they can see the grades and they can be involved in the assignments, you know, because, you know, a lot of times, I mean, I know when me and Strick were coming up, we're at the age where I don't think we didn't have any of these, like the computers and the platforms. And, you know, we just, like, you know, we just had to do our assignment, like, and, you know, like, and the teacher, wrote on the book and that little roster book, and, you know, grade book, and then, like, you, and you didn't know, and, you know, it's kind of tough. But nowadays, everything's so, you know, entertaining. I put a grade in the computer, and it'll calculate their grades right there. So, you know, parents have that. So now, you know, I think it's very important for the parents to stay on that platform and understanding, you know, what is going on week to week, and, you know, say, hey, look, why is this assignment not there, and why did you not do it, or, you know, something like that. You know, being very involved with the students. I know as a high school coach or as a grassroots coach, you know, it's a little bit more. Well, as a high school, as a grassroots, it's a little bit more difficult because I have kids that are from different high schools. Yeah. But I always find a way. You know, I because, you know, Delaware is such a small place. You know, we you know, our network's pretty, you know, pretty small. So I can reach out to other schools and see what my kids doing academically that are not, you know, at my school. But, you know, so I think that's one of the things, is just being on top of the kids about, you know, the grades, and, you know, the parents being communicating with the teachers as well as the students.
What are some of the most common reasons that you see that get in the way of good grades? Is it distraction? Is it
laziness?
Laziness, that's the word. Is it a pure disconnection from the topics? What is it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot, you know, it's a variety of things. You know, sometimes like it's laziness, and it's that maturity, especially at the 9th grade level when you're getting into high school. And, you know, and a lot of times grades aren't stressed, you know, at that point. You know, people always say, okay, well, you know, by the time it's 11th or 12th grade, you know, if you have a kid that's just not, you know, into the books, or, you know, has academically inclined, you know, again, they're going to have to work a little bit hard. You know, they might have to work a little bit harder, and, you know, maybe they don't even want to, you know, and it doesn't come natural for them. Then they're just not going to, you know, a lot of times they're just not going to try, you know, they're not going to work on it. You know, you just like, you know, on the court basketball, some things you know, kids just don't, you know, they don't sometimes get that correlation between, you know, working on a skill to improve it, you know, to make them better. Just like in the classroom, you have to work on that skill and sometimes it's just not the maturity, especially at the younger age, to do that. And and I go back to just setting that standard. They just from the 8th grade or 7th to 8th grade, it's a whole different story once you get to high school, and they don't make that adjustment. The study skills are just not there, and they don't understand the concept again of missing assignments. And I always say, don't miss assignments. If I can say that 100 times, I'll say that. That's what kills. That's what hurts a lot of us or kids. It's just you look at the assignments. You missed this assignment, and man, there's like 30 assignments, and they'll do like 20 or 25. Like, oh, I did all this work. That's zero, man. It's unforgiving, man. Unforgiving.
Yeah, and Mark, I like what you said about starting that in middle school. D's and not being able to play. I mean, that sets a really high standard very early. So, I mean,
you know why? Because some middle school, like in Delaware, you can have a 1.25 and you're able to play extracurricular.
That's 2 D's. Yeah, that's 2 D's,
right.
man. I mean, you ain't doing nothing in 2 classes. I know.
Yeah, and then they think, and that's the thing, the kids get in that mentality. Oh, my grades are good. I'm able to play basketball at 1.25. And that's, I said, when I worked with that population, that was difficult, for the kids to be like, hey, well, why can't I'm allowed to play for my school team, but you're not letting us play on the city league team or the community? And they're like, I'm like, well, because you got a 1.25, or 1.3. And I said, that's not good enough. No. And, and that's the thing, you have to set the standards for the kids, because again, it's almost set up for them to fail, be honest with you, when you're allowed to play it with a 1.25.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So parents and coaches should understand the standards set and then set their own higher.
Yeah, it's tough.
Tell you what, the fastest way for kids to learn when they're sitting on that bench or they're not able to play, man. They figure it out real quick what they have to do to play.
Yep.
Yeah.